In the meantime, here on set, we're talking about the sequestration countdown, which has begun, a point the president touched upon in his State of the Union address last night. Joining us this morning is a member of the Senate Republican leadership, Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, chairman of the Republican Policy Committee. Senator, good morning to you.
Carl, thanks for having me.
Talked about the laundry list of initiatives he pointed out, not a single dime added to the deficit. You don't believe it?
No. I mean, the Americans aren't going to be fooled twice. He said that about the health care law. We have a health care law that is unaffordable, it's unworkable, and very unpopular, but it's added significantly to the deficit, so that I think the American people see right through this president on this.
Some of his defenders this morning will say, look, this is not a trillion-dollar stimulus package like it was in years past. These are smaller initiatives that could be paid for if tax revenues go up, if growth goes up. Is that a reasonable defense?
It's a very big laundry list that's going to be very expensive, which is why we always want the president to submit a budget. Now, he's been late on his homework assignment for that. We want to see that. The Senate, as you know, hasn't passed a budget since before the iPad was invented. So we need to pass a budget. We need to see what the president's proposing because there's a real cost to so many of these things.
Market is always hungry to trade off of anything in the speech. It's hard to do sometimes, definitely hard this year. No mention of Keystone pipelines, no mention of liquefied natural gas exports. What did you make of his energy policy, and how much can he potentially do with some of these executive actions?
Well, I think it could hurt the economy significantly as he focuses on emissions. He wasn't able to get anything passed like the one he mentioned, the McCain-Lieberman bill he mentioned last night. That failed when the Democrats were in control of the House and the Senate with him in the White House. But you need to think about energy security for the country, as well as economic growth and environmental stewardship. What he wants to do with his executive orders, I think, is going to hurt our economic growth.
Minimum wage, one of the big talkers this morning. We're having a bunch of retail and hotel executives saying it would affect our business, probably wouldn't affect our hiring plans overall, but they do say that you want the market to price itself in terms of what a job is paying someone.
Yeah, I'm opposed to raising the minimum wage. I think that the market determines that. We don't want to be focused on the minimum wage. We want to focus on maximizing opportunities for all Americans, which is what Marco Rubio talked about in his address in response to the president last night.
What about the argument that some of the states have already raised it above what the federal minimum wage dictates?
States get to decide what they do, but I don't think that it actually helps the economy. I think it hurts.
So, of all if there was a sweet spot in terms of compromise, are we left with immigration? Is that the number one potential result of all of this?
Well, I'd like to actually get a big deal economically, something like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill put together 25 or so years ago, where you actually do overall tax reform, get more people back to work. I mean, really, the number one threat to our national security right now is our debt, and unless we focus on that, the president made an interesting point about saddling young people graduating from college with incredible education debts. But the amount of spending that President Obama is doing in this administration is saddling every young person in America with incredible debt that they're going to have with them the rest of their life, and that's just wrong.
So you're looking for a grand bargain this year.
I am.
So do we need a short-term fix before March 1st? How likely is that?
Well, I think it's very unlikely that anything's going to happen to ward off the sequester hitting on March 1st. It was initially the president's idea a year and a half ago.
Although everybody agreed.
And so you have this, and in the debates, the president said it's not going to happen, but yet he has still not offered a proposal of what to do with it. Some of the taxes that the Democrats talk about using to kick the can down the road just for a year involve raising taxes on a lot of different things for 10 years. So I don't think it's a reasonable way at all to look at this. You need to actually cut spending, and the president doesn't seem to be willing to do that.
So do you think if the sequester takes place, the markets, investors, businesses are in for a period of shock? A period of crisis?
Well, there's a continuing resolution coming up a couple of weeks later where you can actually take a look at this and say, well, we still need to do this level of cuts, but there are more intelligent ways that we can do it than what's outlined in the sequester.
Finally, if you look at some of the analysis today in the Times, they argue that his mission last night was really to make liberalism palatable to those who would otherwise reject it, right? Trying to move the ideological center of gravity in the country. Is that remotely possible in your view?
Well, that seems to be what the president's talking about. But you go back to kind of Ronald Reagan, it's not, the government isn't the solution, government is the problem,
right.
Which is why I think Marco Rubio really made the specific points of, it's not a big government that solves our problems as a country. It's freedom, free enterprise, opportunities. Marco was raised in families, immigrants, hardworking. My dad was a construction worker. This is a country of success through hard work, opportunity, and I believe that's what the Republican Party is going to continue to focus on: growth, opportunity, and free enterprise.
Senator, thanks for your time.
Thanks
Good to see you, as always, in person,
Thank you.
Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming.